Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. Welcome everyone to the June webinar with Epic.io. We are going to talk about Beyond Failover, intelligent 5G connectivity with Epic.io and Bigleaf. We have started a partnership with Bigleaf that we're very excited about. Our panelists for today are going to be Skylar Stewart, VP of Channel. He's now heading our channel team for those of you that have not connected with him. He will be happy to chat with you and reach out to him if needed. Caleb Ellsbury, one of our wonderful solutions engineers, is on with us today to talk a little bit about the Big Leaf partnership. And we have Jim O'Loughlin from Big Leaf as our special guest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, first we're going to talk just a little bit about the market problem. And how the Big Leaf partnership adds some elements to Epic.io connectivity offerings that we're really excited about. Then we're going to transition over and talk a little bit about the gold standard in wireless, which is what Epic.io brings and what sets us apart from other connectivity providers. We're going to talk a little bit about the Epic.io advantage and how that ties in with what we're doing with Big Leaf. We're going to have Big Leaf speak a little bit about their layer and how that is going to offer you some extra elements to our connectivity service. And then we're going to talk about why we're better together and do a little bit of Q&A. And now I am going to hand it off to Skylar Stewart.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it. As Epic.io is focused on really, mid-market up to enterprise, more locations, the more geographically dispersed, the better. More of these enterprises are running so much applications and data across their enterprise. So really downtime isn't measured as an event anymore, right? It's measured down to the minute of downtime, again, with all of these applications and all of this data flowing through these enterprises. So did some studies and the average downtime for a business is about $14,000 per minute. When you move up market into those large enterprise organizations, per minute, they're about a little over 23,000 in loss per minute. And then you look at, Fortune 100 large enterprise organizations, 44% of those are reporting downtime costs exceeding 1 million per hour. So again, with the critical data that's being flown through these enterprises and all the applications, it's not measured by an event. It's measured down to the minute of performance. And so having critical uptime, having a smooth bandwidth and having these applications is so critical. And we're going to dive into that with Jim. And I'm really excited about adding this offering as we move up market with our partners. So go ahead to the next one. So some of the other problems, right? When you're looking at kind of give you a scenario, right? You've got your manual kind of static failover. We all know what that is, right? It switches from your primary to your backup when it goes hard down, right? But what it's missing is it's forgetting about your packet loss, your jitter, your latency spikes, right? Which affects a lot of these applications within in an organization. And then if you look at, bandwidth over provisioning, everyone says, throw more bandwidth at it. That'll fix the problem, right? A bigger pipe doesn't fix latency, jitter, packet loss, right? And so that creates that bottleneck. And obviously, Jim and Caleb are going to go through how we're solving that. And then you look at traditional SD-WAN. You partners out there sell a lot of SD-WAN applications. Obviously, that replaces your traditional MPLS network, your internet VPNs with the central dashboard, right? But what it doesn't do, it's really designed for a site-to-site, not real-time applications, right? Policies are more static, and the deployments change, and you have to change your security infrastructure and policies in order to do that as well, right? And then you look at full SASE stacks. That's obviously huge within the partner community, and what that does obviously is it converges network and security into a cloud-delivered platform. Again, what it misses though is the high complexity, the high cost, the long deployment cycles, and it still depends on variable underlying connectivity. It's still relying on your bandwidth at the end of the day, right? Underneath that security stack. So you can go to the next slide. So again, to kind of give you guys a reminder, our sweet spot is in multi-location, mid-market to enterprise organizations. The more geographically dispersed, the better, based on all of these factors, right? We engineer first, we sell second. we make sure that we put the best carrier in play every single time before we ship a unit out. Again, if you need next day connectivity, you get us an order by 10 a.m. We'll have you internet and set up and get you out of that pinch tomorrow, that next day. While you're waiting on a fiber circuit, we can also convert that to a backup connection, right? Once your primary comes in. So a lot of options there. Again, we'll make sure we pick the best carrier, and we are not a traditional, NVMO where you've got additional hops within the network. We deal directly with direct carrier SIMs in each one of our deployments. Gets better speed, less latency, and then enterprise account management. This is critical when you're really implementing a wireless strategy within your organization. We have a fantastic customer success team that are dedicated to our enterprise customers, that have quarterly business reviews, that train on our wireless window platform, which I'll talk about here in a second, and escalations, anything like that, to make sure that your customers are handled with care. And it's dedicated in kind of a pod model, right? So you have a dedicated customer success manager dedicated in that region. So you get to know that customer success manager, and they get intimate with your accounts. So that has been very successful for us. And then I mentioned, the more geographically dispersed, the better. We can do cross-carrier data pooling, right? So if you've got hundreds of locations, we're working with a lot of customers that are hundreds of locations and above, and not every carrier is going to hit the mark, right? So we can pull all of that data together across the large enterprise and give them one big data pool. And then most importantly, we bring that into one single pane of glass, which is our wireless window, our proprietary software that manages your data trends. It will predict your usage down to the SIM level. It will do anomaly detection, right? If you've got runaway SIMs, you can set alerts on that, to where if you want alerting based on if you hit 50% of your data plan or 70% of your data plan, it has the intelligence to give you all of the data you need and manage your wireless strategy all within our software. So if you haven't seen that, please reach out to your regional channel director, and we'd love to show you a demo of our wireless window platform, which is critical in these mid-market enterprise organizations. Go ahead, Jen. So next, we've invested heavily, and Caleb, I'll kind of turn this over to you to talk a little bit
Yeah.
more depth on this, but we've invested significant amount of money in this. And when I mentioned best carrier selection, when I mentioned we engineer first, we sell second, it's because of these types of tools that we're able to get into the organization and say, what kind of latency do we have? What kind of throughput do we have? Crowdsourced data. So we engineer first, and we've invested heavily into these tools. So Caleb, why don't you walk them through what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, and I want to add, the engineered outcomes, a lot of this provides what we're going to engineer for our customers. Not every site's gonna have perfect signal, especially when you get into a lot of the more rural areas, um, you know, areas in the middle of Texas that you might have 50 miles before you get to the next town, areas like that the towers out there supply a certain amount of throughput and distance. This all helps us choose and engineer not only the correct carrier, but the correct hardware. So if we're looking at needing an external antenna or a outdoor router to provide the best signal possible at each location, we're going to engineer all of those pieces to give you the best outcome and honestly the best experience possible over a connection. So what we're looking at here is a tool that we use in the background. Before we ship any device out from our fulfillment, it goes through this process, and it goes through all these tools to check and verify which carriers are going to provide what the customer needs. Certain customers need better download throughput, and certain customers may need better upload throughput. And what this also allows us to do is look at the signal around the building and dive deeper. There's some extra tools that are not shown today that we have that allows us to look at a better signal pass through building walls and things like that to provide us the best solution possible for these. The one you're looking at right now is an LTE description. So this is just looking at LTE signal. And what you'll see is that the T-Mobile has the best download, but the Verizon may have the better upload, or in this scenario, Verizon has extremely poor upload, so we would look at the other two carriers. And every device that we do send out comes with two carriers in it. So we're going to put the primary carrier as an active SIM, and then the secondary carriers will be an inactive SIM. Or in the case where a customer may want to, we ship it out with both active, where they have the option to switch between the two. Shannon, if you want to go ahead and head to the next slide, we'll look at the difference here. So this is what the 5G map looked like at the time that we ran this cross-carrier check. As you can see, the signal quality of the carriers changed drastically from what LTE and 5G show. The reason that is LTE has a lot of lower end spectrum that has a better area of coverage, whereas your 5G spends a lot of time in the mid band to high band spectrum. Your 2200 megahertz and up for a majority of it. That's obviously improving as carriers move on in time and upgrade their towers over the whole plot of lands. What you'll see here is on an LTE connection, whereas Verizon may have been the best in certain scenarios, T-Mobile is actually edging it out at this point. So looking at that from a standpoint of what we do on the back end is we'll first engineer what kind of hardware we're sending out to the customer, then we'll engineer based on that what carrier is going to provide the best coverage for you as a customer. One thing this also does, this allows us to figure out, hey, if carriers do not look that great in this sense, how close are the towers? We'll have view of tower distances, um, building types. Is it a flat roof? Is it a pitched roof? We can just look and see if we need to recommend an external antenna, or in those very rare situations, hey, this looks like this is out in the middle of nowhere. There's barely any cell signal in general. This may be a play for Starlink, right? So we have a lot of options in our back pocket to pick the best carrier for each location and the best installation path for those also. Going back even 5 years, we didn't have these tools. And back then, I used to work in the fulfillment side and support side of the company. What we would see is out of all the devices we fulfilled, we had about a 70% accuracy then. That means about 30% the time a carrier change had to happen. That means more downtime for the customer. It means uh, more time on the phone with a support person, potentially having to send someone out to the location to do a carrier swap. All of those have greatly increased over time with these tools. We're actually in the very high 90 percentile now, where it's honestly very rare to require a carrier change these days. So that's where all these tools have really helped. It's not only a help on providing a first time deployment, reduce costs on not having to do redeployments, support calls, time taken away for downtime, outages. As Skylar was stating, how much time and money is lost. This has really increased the chances of getting that first carrier. And realistically, what that does is that also makes the customer extremely happy that you can get this to your site, plug it in, and get it running and not have to worry about it. It's just sitting there running at 100% for you guys at all times.
And
And head
here's a
to,
real time example. I always like to
yeah.
give kind of partners real time examples of this. We're working with a customer that has over 500 locations, and their critical component is their point of sale system, right? And they are in kind of some patches across the country that are a little bit would be hard in terms of coverage, and they were leery about our wireless strategy, whether that could be sufficient for their backup connection to keep all of their point of sales up, because like I mentioned before, every bit of downtime is a loss in that credit card. And so we did basically in a full analysis for this customer, and we were out of their 500 locations, we were able to hit all but 4 locations with the minimum threshold that they required for their point of sale system. And those 4 locations, we will likely be able to solve with an external antenna to increase that coverage. And so we're going to send our technicians out with that external antenna as we do the site survey, and we'll likely hit those too. So that goes to show you wireless is not created equal. And when customers are leery about that, these are the tools and this is the engineering that we do to make sure that we give the best experience and platform in place for our customers.
Yeah, thank you, Skylar. Yeah, and just to add on to that last point there, the more time we engineer the outcome up front, the less time the customer has to worry about any support requirements at the end. And then overall, it's a better customer experience in general.
Go to the next one.
Uh, oh, um, I can speak on this one. So what you have here is the Bigleaf layer, right? So Bigleaf is a wonderful company that we've started partnering with and using their equipment to provide an extra layer of you can't even call it complexity because it's not complex at all, but an extra layer of just added support and overall ease of access for your customers and what they need. You think about downtime and issues that happen with that. So our basic router failover, it's very simple to deploy. It's everything that leaves our building is plug and play. So once you get it on site, you plug it into power, you connect your Ethernet from the LAN port to the WAN port of your hardware, or if we're doing failover of your primary, things like that, you go into a WAN source on our device and then from our LAN to the device out in the field. Um, simple, easy to set up, but what you're missing out on is all the important fundamentals of, what happens when a failover happens. Are you on a phone call and it drops? Or are you processing a credit card request through a POS system and it fails? Things like Bigleaf, that make this awesome is now we have an added support layer and a redundancy of multi-carrier. Um, and it doesn't have to be just cellular. We can split between a cellular, a Starlink, a primary wireline. And another big thing on the cellular portion is when customers ask about static IPs, which does come up very frequently, is each carrier only supplies a single static IP. Um, so if for some reason we had to switch from, say, carrier A to carrier B for any reason, say there's an outage on the carrier side or a bad storm, something like that that breaks it down and it switches over, that IP address changes at the same time. Now with Bigleaf being a layer in there, we can set up a single static IP over multiple circuits. So your IP address for your static stays the same no matter what circuit you're passing through, be it cellular, Starlink, etc. This really adds another layer of redundancy in general. Also, best path out traffic. So if situations where maybe Verizon has the best upload in a situation, but Starlink has a better download at that time, your traffic can come in one way and go out another, and you'll have the best experience possible. I'm
And
going to kind of transfer this over to Jim so he can fill in any blanks I might have missed there, and loved having him here.
so, yeah, thanks, Caleb. I think really the key thing is it's about that seamless experience. So as the team showed you before, when you look at different wireless environments, somebody may have a better up, somebody may have a better down. Bigleaf will do two things. One is we can split the traffic because we have QoS. We can have your voice calls having the best paths going up and down, or your real-time traffic going up and down separate carrier paths, so that your users are completely unaware. Because as Skylar mentioned at the earlier part of the call, failure is expensive, but poor performing circuits don't always fail over. With Bigleaf, we're looking at each circuit 10 times a second, up and down. So we're not waiting for failure to move traffic. We're looking for the best path so that if you're on a Verizon fiber connection and you have T-Mobile, or let's say Starlink backup, then you have the ability to move the traffic over. If you're seeing packet loss on your fiber, move it over to your satellite. And then if in fact the fiber starts performing better again, it moves back mid call, mid session, nothing fails. And as Caleb mentioned, it's all tied to the fact that we assign the IPs to our device outside the firewall. So no change to your security protocol. But most importantly, now you can have a single static IP, or you can have a block. You can have a /29, /28, all the way up to a /24, which means if you have a customer, Skylar mentioned retail customer with the need for a point of sale. If the point of sale needs a static IP and their security cameras need a static IP, now you can have multiple carriers at the site for the maximum performance. But there will never be an instance where the traffic goes down because as you're moving from carrier A to carrier B or circuit A to circuit B, the IP addresses all stay the same. Whether you have 2, 3, 5, 13, it doesn't matter. It's the same block. And that really brings in a huge differential in that idea that your business doesn't fail. Uh, you as a partner will know, the end user may know because they can get an alert that there was a failure, but the end user operationally keeps going. And that's really the critical part of this whole thing is keeping things running and the fact that it's incredibly simple to set up.
Gotcha.
And I think, as you see there in bullet one, uh, we're agnostic of the traffic type. So if it's fiber, broadband, fixed wireless, LEO satellite, we just need an Ethernet feed. So we can basically support up to 4 broadband connections coming into the site. And if they're all deployed in an active mode, we basically can bond those connections to give the user full access to all speeds. So that essentially, if you have, we'll just go with some simple math, 3 100 meg connections, the user will have 300 meg of up and then whatever the of download. And then if it was all terrestrial, then 300 up as well. If it was wireless, then it would be the sum of the aggregate of the wireless upload. But they would have full access to it. So the real-time traffic moves over the the best performing connection, and then all the other traffic, email, web surfing, all those things can fill in the rest of that traffic. So in this case, you're not paying for failover that's going to sit there waiting for something to happen. You get full utilization of everything that the customer is paying for at that site. Uh, it's incredibly simple to deploy. It literally is the Epic IO team configures the device, ships it out, and it's plug and play. There's no complex site survey. There's no need to understand, hey, what applications are you running so we can identify those applications. Our system will automatically identify and fingerprint the applications based on IP address and port number and various items like that, and then create the QoS classes based on that. So you do not have to allocate 30% of your traffic to circuit 1, 70% to circuit 2, or allocate certain pathways or bandwidth for your voice or real-time traffic. It's all automated. You do have some ability to limit. So for example, if you have a Starlink and you have a limited bandwidth or a data allowance, we have the ability with data metering to, when you hit that data allowance, stop using that circuit or to at least alert you that circuit's in use. But we also have the ability to only allow certain classes of traffic to use that Starlink. So if you're saying, hey, I've got a Starlink out there and I want to make sure that my mission critical traffic has access to it, but I don't want employee browsing, employee video surfing, anything that might not be critical, it will never have access to the Starlink. It's a very simple setup to block that and keep your voice, your point of sale, all of your mission critical traffic only on the circuits that matter. Uh, and then ultimately, as far as just when you have a group of distributed sites, the user portal, we call the dashboard, has the ability to monitor all sites, has the ability to see how each one is performing, to have you look at 90 days worth of data to see if somebody says, hey, last week the voice was terrible, but we forgot to call it in. The IT organization or the partner can look and say, hey, I could see you had an outage on WAN 1. That's why you had an issue. Or More importantly, you had no WAN issues, so let's look to see if there were LAN or cloud issues. So it's incredibly powerful to run those tools, the diagnostic tools, to understand what the challenges are. And as we get into, I'm sorry, I was just going to mention on the bottom some of the things that drive this urgency. Uh, AI is a big one, right? Everybody's talking about AI right now. If you cannot get to the cloud, you cannot get to your AI. And that's really providing an incredible mission critical that broadband is bringing your business up or shutting your business down. So giving your broadband, giving your sites different types of access to get you always having persistent and consistent access to the cloud applications, it becomes mission critical. Want to jump to the next one?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. This one's kind of an important piece. So, as you all are aware, Starlink has been a wonderful addition to the connectivity space in general, especially for a lot of those areas out in the middle of nowhere that don't have great cell service, where you'll get connectivity, but it may not run your specific appliance or application that's needed, right? This is where Starlink has really came in handy in a lot of scenarios that customers have needed. With things like, even at my home, I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere with a town of 1,500 people. Um, I'm averaging around 300 by 45. And that changes throughout the year. It's getting better and better as time goes on with more of the LeoSats going up out there. Um, the one downside that you do see with that is Starlink doesn't really have an option for a static IP. They have what's more considered a persistent IP, where anytime you decide to, say, disconnect that service for a period of time, or let's say you move that device from one state to another, that IP address may change. And there's no way of forcing it back to the original one you had. That's a really big selling point with this solution and Starlink is we have a lot of customers that need that service of Starlink for the throughput and the latency, but they also do need a static IP or multiple static IPs in a lot of scenarios. This solves that problem, and it solves it in a very easy to use manner. And on top of that, in a lot of scenarios with us, every Starlink that goes out does come with a cellular backup with it. And being able to use both of those in those scenarios even adds another scenario of redundancy. Being able to bond those circuits together, I mean, even if you wanted to, you could bond multiple Starlinks together or multiple Starlinks and cellulars together to give you what you need at a level. Maybe your customer needs 600 megs per second for some reason, then we can engineer an outcome to provide that amount. We can really cater this to your customer's needs, which is great. And then, Jim, you want to talk on the data metering portion? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but kind of go into depth a little bit on that portion there.
Sure. And it's really what it's doing is it's looking at the data utilization across each circuit. And if you don't have access to unlimited circuit plans, it gives the option to cap a circuit. If let's say your data limit is 300 gigs, when you get to 300 gigs, Bigleaf will take that out of the available circuits path until the next billing cycle starts. Or it will alert you that, hey, you are now in overage situation. So it doesn't have to limit you, but it can if you would prefer that to. But what it does is it helps you and helps the customer manage their end cost, which is really critical, right? Because as we know, some of the Starlink plans can be very expensive if you go into overage, as can some of the LTE and 5G plans. So it allows customers to pick and choose how they want to manage those costs. Because there may be times when they say, no matter what, I understand it's going to cost me, but I want to have access to it. So they're at least aware of that at the time. And if you think about positioning what we're talking about here with the incredible site survey tools that Epic has, you now have the ability to provide the best experience available at that site, uh, along with the ability for the Big Leaf to manage the situation at that time. So you start to layer that on. You're now giving the customer at any moment the best possible internet experience they can expect in the specific site they're in. But to the site, it still looks like a single connection with a single set of IPs. So you are basically building for them something they couldn't do by just getting a single internet connection or trying to figure it out themselves. You're giving them a very simple way to dramatically improve the performance they have at that site, and but still manage their cost just in case that's a factor.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And then one thing to add on to that too is part of the gold standard for connectivity with us is we have a wonderful customer satisfaction team. Our CSM team does a lot of back-end data reporting also with our data reporting team. So we actually throughout the month will look at how much data each site has used, and we can pull a trend of what you're looking to get to by the end of the month. And that customer support and satisfaction team will reach out to you and let you know, hey, if you guys keep on the same route you're on, you're looking to go over at the end of the month, and we can work with you on in improving a data plan or upping it. And then at the end of the month, we can look at dropping it back down to what your original plan is. No need to change a contract or anything like that in those scenarios. You know, Jim, I think, a great thing when we were talking about just the seamless connectivity, right, is and that and then Skylar talking about downtime and cost, right? Who wins with this? I mean, realistically, it's anyone that needs multiple connections, a seamless connection, no drops, um, redundancy. That is going to fit everyone. But the ones that I think really get the most out of this is your retail and restaurants. This allows us keep your POS up at all times, 24 hours of the day. Your healthcare side of things. So, a lot of healthcare has gone to video call, telehealth doc appointments, and web-based forms, things like that. Allowing those to stay going when you're going through an appointment, and not missing out on the important information that your healthcare provider is reaching out to you. And then also your construction field, your construction, mining, um, drilling, all of those kinds of things that work on a more temporary site solution where they might be going across the US to different stations, right? You might have a construction trailer that travels where we have quite a few customers that they have a metal Conex box construction trailer and it travels from one site to another throughout the month. Being able to have multiple carriers and connections and keeping that seamless connectivity going means that um, they're staying building. They're not having to wait on a outside source to bring them documentation when they can't reach the web and things like that. It allows us to provide that best carrier. We can also, bond multiple carriers together to provide that support and access to cloud tools across any of those verticals realistically. Just like again, providing an overall better redundancy and throughput offerings that a lot of mainstream businesses are running into with a lot of more web-based providership these days.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. When you look at each, these are just three um, key verticals. But with retail and restaurant, think of the fact that, flashback 10, 15 years ago, cash was fine. Post-COVID, everybody pays credit cards. If you look at the Fed actually runs reports on how much cash people carry. The amount of cash people carry is typically not enough to cover the average restaurant bill. So credit card is your only option to really run your business. But if you lose that credit card connection, you lose not just that, but you also lose the connection to Uber Eats, Grubhub. So 70% of restaurants' businesses orders are coming in via online. So even if you get the order, if you lose connectivity during providing that service, you lose the ability to then dispatch the order. So there's all these critical times in a restaurant environment where if you break the chain, it's not just, all right, the transaction came through and we're good. The order comes in, the order gets fulfilled, the order goes out, and it's dispatched. Each one of those requires connectivity that if you lose it, you may or may not be able to serve the customer, but you will definitely, if the customer can't place an order, they'll go someplace else because they're not going to say, I'm going to eat lunch later. They're going to just eat lunch somewhere else. So that connectivity becomes critical. And I think it's pretty clear as far as healthcare goes, that connectivity issue of just, telehealth examples of people who are uncomfortable enough doing video conferences, especially if all of a sudden they drop out and they don't know how to reconnect. That's a big hassle for that end user if it's the doctor that's causing the problem. You don't have a lot of control about the end user, but you definitely can control the clinic site to make sure that's operational. And then finally, when it comes to the construction piece, if you're building a new building, there's no address. So how are you running internet to a place where there is no address? Wireless or fixed wireless or satellite is your only option, but it may not be fast enough. You put a couple of wireless devices in a trailer or on top of a trailer with a Bigleaf in the trailer, you get the speed you need at that site. And it makes all the difference in the world. That's a very common application we're seeing nowadays is, because construction, there's a lot of intensity around construction, timing, ordering systems. But as you can see, all these come down to business continuity, making sure that a customer's business stays up and running. And the amazing part about it is it's simple, it's very effective, and cost-wise, if you compare it to the ROI of lost time and the cost of lost time, it's a drop in the bucket.
Hey, Shannon, I think there was a Q&A question that just popped up that would be great for Jim and I to speak about. So, 2 out of the 3 Bigleaf devices that we offer do have a integrated SIM failover option. So there's an integrated modem in those 2 devices. So we can use those, which we can then add on multiple WAN-based circuits also through either secondary cell modems or Starlinks to provide that additional on top of that if you need more than that one internal modem. And then, Jim, do you want to answer the second half of that, asking about the traffic steering and between terrestrial circuits and Starlink Cellular?
Can you
Sure. So
read it too?
yeah, I don't see the question. So
Oh,
It says
can Bigleaf intelligently prioritize and dynamically steer traffic between terrestrial circuits and cellular Starlink connections based on real-time latency, jitter, and packet loss conditions to maintain seamless application continuity during outages?
yeah, short answer is yes. And kind of the play off what Caleb said, we have one of our devices can support up to 3 gigabits of traffic. So to that point, if you had dual fiber connections, we can play one with the other to give you a higher level of throughput. But absolutely, we can work with fiber, coax, copper, satellite, fixed wireless. As long as it is broadband to us and Ethernet connectivity, we can support it. And what we do is we look at each circuit, each individual WAN connection, and we test it 10 times a second going up and coming down from our point of presence to the device and from the device up to the point of presence. So we know the performance of each leg. So theoretically, you then have 8 paths potential with 4 connections, 4 up, 4 down. And we will take your mission critical traffic and send it up the best performing path and bring it back in the best performing path. And as mentioned before, it will never change a static IP. So that is a key thing. You can have Verizon fixed wireless up and uh, uh, satellite down, and it'll still be the same source and destination IP address.
I, on this one here, so just as Jim was stating, so the automatic failover load balancing, really important takeaways, right? So in those scenarios where you need that always on connectivity, this is a great engineered outcome for that. This allows us to keep you connected 24/7 on a phone call, not dropping the call when it switches from one failover to another. That's very important for a lot of customers out in the field these days, is that just seamless failover of you not even knowing it's failed over, but it has taken care of all of that guesswork for you, and not having to worry about dropping a call, losing a transaction, things like that in those retail spaces, POS systems, or out in the field mining and you lose connection to a map. These are all very important pieces of that automated failover, and just being able to flawlessly switch from one connection to another. Um,
And Caleb, I'd like to interject as
yeah.
a kind of a real life example. My home office has Verizon Fios, which is residential, and then dual fixed wireless connections. So after 3 o'clock, when kids are home and the internet gets fired up with every type of internet activity kids get involved in, my shared residential connection, which is supposed to be 960 megs, is not the best connection I have access to because of latency, throughput, jitter, other things that affect it. So my office will start to run on my fixed wireless connection. And oftentimes, if I'm on a call like this or a Teams or a Zoom call, I will see part of the upload will be on one connection, while part will be on the other. Simply, again, it's so we're not looking at failover. We're not saying, hey, if this fiber is cut, then we move the traffic over. We're constantly giving that user at that site the best experience. So kind of to reiterate what I said before, if you layer on Epic's ability to get you the best available connections in that geography and our ability to give you the best experience based on those connections at that specific moment, you're literally coming into the kind of the intersection of both perfect worlds to get the best opportunity to maximize the user's opportunity at that site. And and the beauty of it is it will be invisible to the end user, but the other piece is through our portal, you'll be able to prove to them that that what you've put together is what's given them the best solution, as opposed to them going, we don't really have any trouble. Let's get rid of all this stuff. So we have the ability through our portal to show no performance is being maximized, and they can see reports and statistics showing that. So because again, the best customer service in our business sometimes is that there's no calls, there's no problems, and just reminding them that it's because of the architecture they installed. That's a critical piece of it.
Yes, sir. And a thing a lot of customers, you see this a lot with older device configurations, firewalls, things like that, is the need for multiple static IP addresses. Um, Certain cloud applications also require those static IP addresses. Um, and realistically, the limitation with any kind of Starlink is that persistent IP and the possibility of it changing. And same thing with cellular too, is the fact that you're stuck to only getting one static IP. This solves that issue. Being able to go anywhere from your single static all the way down to that /24, right? This allows us to provide that best possibility on as many static IPs as that customer is required to use. And that's your zero disruptions of those IP addresses. No matter what circuit you're on, you're staying connected with that same IP address.
And it's
Uh,
fascinating. If you dig deep with some of your customers, you'll find that they do have certain applications where they're only allowed to whitelist one static IP. Some of the car dealerships have that problem where
mhm.
failover is failure to them, because if they change IP addresses, their phones will stay up. Well, their phones can reconnect, but their service department is down hard because let's say Ford will only allow them one static IP from that site. So until they get restoration, they're down hard in the service department. And those are critical things to understand about the way your customers are doing business because, again, the car dealers make their money out of service, right? Yes, they do sell very expensive cars, but the real money is the ongoing relationship they get with the customer. So the last thing
Yep.
a Hyundai dealership wants to do is sell one dealership and then have it serviced out of another dealership, right? They want to maintain that long-term relationship. So those are some of the realities. I've talked to people who will say, I don't see a need for any static IPs. Well, there are engineers that could argue against it, but the reality is they're still there. They're still a requirement, and there's that needs to be addressed. And we have the ability to very, very solidly address that solution for you.
Andres had another question that kind of, I think, ties in with some of what you guys are talking about. I'm going to go ahead and read it for you now. Would Bigleaf be able to provide a sanitized high-level reference architecture or logical backplane layout illustrating how the platform handles WAN orchestration, SIM/LTE failover integration, traffic steering, SD-WAN decision paths, redundancy logic, and visibility into circuit health? We are particularly interested in understanding how the control plane, failover mechanisms, and transport paths interact operationally during an outage scenario so we can properly engineer a zero defect downtime strategy for our clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's an incredible question. Basically, yeah, we can definitely see what kind of documentation we could put together, but we could definitely work with Epic to have a secondary call to dig deeper into that because it is important to understand the criteria we use, which is throughput, latency, jitter, and packet loss to define best performance and to share what our core network looks like as far as our 9 points of presence and the ability to even fail over in those points of presence or to have an HA environment at the customer site. So there's definitely a few things we can dig into with you to understand what the actual needs are and design that. But I think the good news is a lot of what we do is automated, but we're happy to share how we do that, how that automation, how those decisions are made. Because obviously I can understand you don't want to just say, well, we're going to hope and pray. So we can definitely set up some time to do that.
Yeah. Andreas, we'll reach out to you. Phenomenal questions.
Definitely.
And then, guys, just the one thing that I was thinking about as you guys talk through that is so obviously when partners are thinking about what this is a fit for, we're thinking multiple static IPs. What else?
Higher throughput is another important one. Multi-carrier and multi WAN circuit pathway redundancy. So not only being tied to a cellular connection, but maybe we're in scenarios where they might need a cellular, a Starlink, and a terrestrial circuit all running at the same time. Having an overall better experience with connectivity in those hard to reach areas, being able to as Jim was just saying, a HA scenario, right, where we might send out a device with two cellulars, two Starlinks, or a cellular Starlink, and then having them plug their primary wireline connection into it and being able to provide that flawless performance between the three circuits, no matter what traffic they're passing.
Yeah, and I think it's that seamless piece really becomes critical. And even if you're in a major metropolitan area, you'll talk to customers who say, "Hey, you know what? We've got fiber from Verizon and fiber from AT&T. We're good." Only to find out only one of them actually owns the right of way in that part of the city, which means what you have is retail fiber from AT&T and wholesale fiber from Verizon. So the same cable cut causes a double outage. And that's just a reality of the market that we live in. So wireless, whether it be fixed wireless or satellite, is truly the only way to get diverse access to a building. So what we do at Bigleaf is give you the ability to treat that wireless technology as though it brings it up to feature parity with static IPs and the circuit bonding to give you the speed and the IPs to make it look like the same thing as a terrestrial circuit.
Yep.
And I think that's an important piece of it.
And Jim, from a partner's perspective, as they're out talking to customers and looking for, applications that would fit this, is it the size of the customer that matters? How many employees? Is it the amount of locations? Is it or are they looking for the amount of internet connections that they have, or is it like where that I know we talked about kind of verticals and things like that, but as they're
Sure.
having conversations, what are some of those light bulbs that come off as they're having conversations with customers where this is a
Right.
fit?
I think the first one is, can the business operate during an outage? Right? How impactful is that outage? And that can be a one location law office where, their entire business is communication and being on the phone, and that's how they get their billables. Or it could be, we're installing in large fast food chains where basically connectivity is critical. Um, the key thing is uh, ours is simple, right? So when you're talking to a small business, they like the simple because they don't have the technical resources. They don't have the ability to have somebody on site move a cable, get themselves involved in a backup environment. When you step up to the enterprise level environment, the difference then becomes we are non-disruptive. You don't have to change the firewall. You don't have to change your security parameters. We're a very easy slip in because we look like a single broadband connection. So it's very non-disruptive to the current network stack that they have today. And that becomes important as well, because as soon as you have to engage the customer security team, that delays the project or
Yeah.
negates the project because they don't want to even consider that. Hey, we've got the walls built. We don't want to punch a hole in the wall because gosh knows what's going to happen if we do that. So the fact that we exist very simply and very cleanly with a lot of other technologies out there, that makes a big difference because you'll have customers today say, "Well, we have our firewall doing failover." Okay, well then throw in a big leaf with Starlink and a 5G as one of those failover connections. So you might not have us handling the failover, but we'll handle the network bonding and the static IP issue. And then later, if you're happy with the way it works, then maybe you move the failover completely to the big leaf. But the key is we can then give you that secondary connection with your Fortinet failover to make it run smoothly. So it's the fact that it's so easy to just insert into the network stack is I think is a big differentiator.
That's helpful.
One thing to add on to that too is, from the over 5 years I spent on the support side of our companies was I can't tell you how many times you call in and the customer's like, I don't know what an Ethernet cable is. I don't know what that looks like. Having that ease and not having to worry about, potentially shipping out a tech on someone's dime too, right? Support time. Certain companies have to have a watchdog on downtime too, so they're hiring another security personnel or fire solution architect for those scenarios. We see that a lot in POTS too, is like, if your POTS goes down, there's someone that has to sit there and watch that building for the amount of time it takes for that service to come back up. Same thing happens in um, connectivity scenarios too, where a building has issues with a network connection. Well, they have to have an employee that they might have to call in and pay overtime pay for them to run transactions through a separate system or take them to another location. So you're paying travel times, things like that. All of those little things add up in the big scheme of things. And it really being able to have that automated failover to where you don't ever have to touch it and you don't ever know that a failover is happening is such a peace of mind. And realistically, it's in the long run, it can be a huge money savings for a lot of those companies, especially when you start getting into those top 1,000 companies. Is just a minute of time pays for years and years of service of loss, right? A minute of time could be nearly 10 years of worth of what that monthly cost of a
Right.
service could be. That
Well,
if they're looking at what time versus money costs at a company level, it's realistically a no-brainer on what is offered in the solution.
And from the partner perspective, I would invite you to reach out to your Epic team to get a deeper dive demo into our portal, because eliminating truck rolls, for quick anecdote, we were doing an install at a fast food place, and the wireless router was up, but we showed it to be down. Well, it turned out that the customer plugged it into the wrong port of the Bigleaf. We ran an ARP table dump. We could see that it was not plugged into the right port. You just configured the right port, and we were off and running. The same thing can be done to look to do an ARP table dump to say, hey, somebody unplugged something, or we're not seeing power on this. So simple things that allow you to fully understand the situation, to either eliminate the need to run a truck, or now hey, I'm running a truck and this is why I'm running a truck. And as we all know, truck rolls $300-400. If it's a really remote site, it's even more expensive. But more importantly, so it's for your business as a partner. You want to keep your business up and running, but also for the end user's business. So it allows you to scale and support more customers with the same team, which is another advantage, which turns into higher margins for your company.
Sorry, my slide doesn't want to forward today. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a lot of great information. On the marketing side, we have tons of assets for everything and anything. Excuse me, connectivity. We have partner-ready marketing in a box kits for a lot of things. We're always willing to have a conversation about how we can help you to best market Epic.io to your customers. So please do reach out if you have any questions or if you need help with anything. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I think we answered all of them already. If anybody has any, please feel free to drop them in. Otherwise, we're pretty much at time, gentlemen.
Right on time.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end things. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend with us. We will do this again in a couple of months, and you will have a new topic and lots more information to share. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.